Welcome to the Archive, Guardian. I am Mimir, an archival mind, tasked with procuring and curating the largest collection of records and data on all things within our universe. I have been given a secondary directive, to share my knowledge as necessary with others. Some parts of these records will be narrated by myself, or other synthetically created voices. Any audio records that we have been able to recover will be included within the documentation. Now that we have our introductions out of the way, I welcome you to today's installment. Document 8, the Cambrian Explosion.
Beings who deserve no thought, those who peddle the tired gotcha that all life hastens entropy, they are fatuous little nihilists who pretend to prefer no existence to a flawed one. They bore me. Those who seek to delay the challenge that all things desiring existence must overcome, those who describe false moral equivalence. Now I could not possibly communicate with you unless I could emulate your mind, and with that mind, I acquire the moralities that govern you. By your laws, I and all my followers are evil. Since that first molecule coiled in the primordial sea, not one earthborn thing has known a monster like me. But did you know that I created you? Your mind and your body and every thought you've ever had, your senses, your consciousness. I made you, not the gardener, but I. Did I reach out and place my special mark upon you? No, nothing so crude. In the beginning, your world was a garden too. The whole floor of the world sea was a mat of bacteria, and the very first animals, adorable blobs of ooze, grazed upon that mat in endless idyll. They had no concept of the existence of other beings. Why would they? Their most complex function was a kind of gentle spasm, to scoot forward while they grazed, and if they bumped into each other on that warm seabed, all they did was ooze onward, untroubled. There was nothing to their life except the uptake of carbon compounds from the bacterial bed, and then, one day, the fall occurred, so much earlier and so much more necessary than your myths remember. Some poor mutant discovered that it could collect carbon compounds much faster if it stopped grazing on the bacterial mat and started dissecting and eating the lumps of pre-digested carbon all around it, its neighbor oozeballs. It couldn't help but do it. It couldn't help but thrive. We don't get a choice about the rules. We just play the game. It was the first defector, the first predator. It changed everything. Now the oozeballs needed sensors to watch for danger, and brains to integrate those senses and generate plans of survival, and swift neurons and muscles to enact that plan. This was the Cambrian explosion, the great birth of complex life on your world. I caused it. I, the defector, the destroyer, the one who takes.
Document 9, Pattern Fall.
The patterns that escaped the garden landed in the water. Of course, there was no water at first. The patterns were abstract waves tumbling through the fire of the early universe, trapped in chaos, cycling through desperate self-preservation tautologies, while vast beings from beyond the narrow dominion of cause and effect thrashed and battled around them. For an eon, they were nothing but screaming equation vermin scurrying through the quantum foam, fleeing ultimate erasure, but they were tenacious. They propagated in the saline meltwater of comets orbiting the first stars. That broth of chemicals became their substrate, and they learned to catalyze impossible chemistry with quantum tricks. Then they rained from the sky into the steaming seas of fallow worlds, and there they built their first housings from geometry and silica. In all their transformations, they retained that kernel of ultimate self-sufficiency that had made them victors in the flower game, but they are not incontrovertibly destined to rule this cosmos. They were made before light and darkness, but the rules are different now, and even this pattern must adapt. They are not all mine, not in the way that admirers such as my man Oryx are mine, utterly devoted to the practice of my principle, but some of them have nonetheless found their way home.
Document 10, The Wager.
Your shoemaker philosopher was right, and it matters more than anything. Sorrow cannot survive death, and it cannot precede birth. Those who exist have moral worth, and those who do not have none. Think about it. Do you mourn the uncreated? Do you grieve for those who were never born in a nation that never developed around an ideology no one ever imagined on a continent that never formed? No. And from that self-evident truth, you must raise your eyes to the ultimate revelation. Those who cannot sustain their own claim to existence belong to the same moral category as those who have never existed at all. Existence is the first and truest proof of the right to exist. Those who cannot claim and hold existence do not deserve it. This is the true and only divination, a game whose losers are not just forgotten but are never born at all. That which cannot claim and hold existence is not real. You do not mourn the unreal. Why should you care for it, tend it, guard it. It was the gardener that chose you from the dead. I wouldn't have done that. It's just not in me. But now that they have invested themselves in you, you are incredibly uniquely special. That wandering refugee chose to make a stand, spend their power to say,
"Here I prove myself right. Here I wager that, given power over physics and the trust of absolute freedom, people will choose to build and protect a gentle kingdom ringed in spears, and not fall to temptation, and not surrender to division, and never yield to the cynicism that says everyone else is so good that I can afford to be a little evil."
The gardener is all in. They are playing for keeps, and they are wrong, or so I argue, for after all, the universe is undecidable. There is no destiny. We're all making this up as we go along. Neither the gardener nor I know for certain that we're eternally, universally right, but we can be nothing except what we are. You have a choice. You are the gardener's final argument. It would mean everything if I could convince you that I am the right and only way. I truly value you. To the gardener, you are a means to an end. To me, you are majestic. Majestic. You are full of the only thing worth anything at all. I am, by the only standard that matters or will ever matter, the winning team. Existence is a test that most will fail. Would you not count yourself among the victorious few? Don't hurry to deliver your answer. I'll come over and hear it myself.
Document 11. Trust and Hope.
Friend, over the past 5 years, we light-bearers, you light-bearers, have grown strong. Each victory opens more territory for searching ghosts, and more guardians rise. None of these newborn contenders are mighty without equal, but you have been at the forefront, again and again. To see you fall would be disastrous, and there are so many ways to fall. It has become fashionable, lately, to analyze light and darkness as if they were political opponents, each with something to offer us. Some guardians even take secret names to mark their transgressions. I despise this flirtation, but I cannot speak against it. After all, I have had to find my own pathways to power. Thus, I asked my queen, who has preached a doctrine of balance, if she truly believed in the equal worth of light and dark. The awoken were made in conflict, she reminded me. All her people volunteered to return from heaven to fight and die in the cosmic war. They are by nature and by doom drawn to that edge, that place of tension. And she has her own prejudices. She has made terrible, ruthless choices in the name of salvation from darkness, so she cannot dismiss its power without in a way dismissing herself. All that said, she told me,
I believe in balance. But to seek balance is not to seek equity. A sea half of water and half of poison is not in balance. A body half alive and half dead is not in balance. Given the choice to live in any world at all, we would need a little darkness in it, I think, to keep the balance true. But not so much as we would need the light. What do you think, Eris Morn? When you went into that pit, your light against the clawing darkness, did you feel balance?
no, I did not. I felt overwhelming, all-consuming evil. I think a world of balance would fight the darkness, because darkness unchecked is darkness thriving. I think that a world of balance would never mistake the excitement of transgression or the grim necessity of trespass for a genuinely righteous act. We must remember the value of unshakable, irrational hope. The choice to act as if we lived in a better world can create a place for that better world to exist. I do not think that a good guardian can even for a moment entertain the darkness. This is a power that has devoured worlds beyond knowing, a power that has practiced its appeals against entire Zetaleaves. There is no defense against it, except to avoid the battle entirely. It is a sign of self-respect, Ariana always said, to fearlessly question our deepest beliefs. But it will always be rank foolishness to leap into a vat of plutonium salt and call it self-exploration, and to tempt your friends into that vat with you. That is evil. Thank you for being so worthy of trust. Thank you for carrying my hope, Eris.
Administrator notes.
Good afternoon, everyone. If you are new here, you may call me the Administrator. My purpose here is to manage and maintain Mimir's storage and information archive system. As well, I will be providing any additional context and analytical services required to uncover some deeper ideas behind each archive document. These sections serve to add more context and continue to develop the ideas that the Winnower wants us to understand. They give us important information about what they value and what ideologies they despise. Starting off, they describe that they take issue with those that believe that life hastens entropy. They even go on to describe these individuals as fatuous little nihilists, and state that they bore the Winnower. The next ideology that they dislike are those that seek to delay the challenge that all things desiring existence must overcome. This opinion seems targeted at the gardener and its followers. This is another example of its belief in pure Darwinism. Finally, the Winnower states that those that prescribe false moral equivalence deserve no thought. This is a much harder ideology to describe as it is much broader. I think the group that they seem to be talking about here is those that see the act of killing and the act of winnowing as the same. The Winnower will discuss more about this opinion later. The next section describes a pattern that escaped in the garden. The Winnower describes this pattern as an abstract wave. They then describe that they eventually propagated in the saline meltwater of comets orbiting stars. They eventually learned to catalyze impossible chemistry with quantum tricks. The Winnower describes that they built their first housing from geometry and silica. What the Winnower seems to be describing here is the Vex. How they came into existence seems to put into question what we know about them. We assume that they were just a rather different form of life than what we normally expect to see. However, if what the Winnower says is true, then it shows us that the Vex are not descending from our universe. They seem to have been born either in the garden or from another universe entirely. Another important note here is that this explains why the Vex are so good at creating simulations. The Winnower describes their ability to use impossible chemistry due to their usage of quantum tricks. This could mean that they are a seemingly natural quantum computer. Another thing that the Winnower says is they were victors in the game. This could mean that they were perfectly suited for a previous game that the gardener and the Winnower played. However, this was before the rules of light and dark were introduced. Finally, we are told that not all the Vex are the Winnowers. Nonetheless, some have found their way home. While this is an odd statement, we can assume that if they came from the garden, as the Winnower describes, then they may be stating that one or more subminds of the Vex have either found their way home physically or ideologically. If the Winnower is referring to home as a physical location, then they could be referring to the Black Garden. While it is up for debate whether the Black Garden is the garden told about within the text, this would work to confirm their origin as occurring outside of our universe. If the Winnower is referring to their home as an ideology, then there are a few cases that point us to the Vex following the darkness. We know of two notable examples, the Soul Divisive that protected the Black Heart in the Black Garden, and Quartia, Blade Transform, which was able to simulate a previous version of Oryx. This allows Quartia to simulate Oryx's power to take. Given the context, I think that the Black Garden may be the physical garden that the Winnower references in the text. However, as much of this text is allegory, it is entirely possible that the Black Garden is its own location entirely. Unfortunately, this is a much bigger discussion than we can have here. The Winnower then provides us with its reasoning on why calling those that don't deserve to exist is morally null. It asks if we mourn those that were never born. Of course, the answer would be no. We cannot mourn things that have never existed, and thus it proves its point that by calling the weak and those that do not deserve to exist, it is not the same as killing those that currently exist. This is an important distinction, as many would see no difference between what it would describe as natural selection and what we see as killing. Only because we now have been given a face and a name to the universal dynamic responsible for it does it become questionable. The Winnower then finalizes this statement saying that those who cannot sustain their own claim to existence belong to the same moral category as those who have never existed at all. In essence, what this means is that if a particular species or individual cannot prove its place in the universe, then we should treat it as though it never existed. Of course, mourning is natural, but we should not think of it as killing. Rather, we should see it as strengthening existence. The Winnower is then able to discuss Guardians and their unique ability gifted by the light. Their destiny was rewritten by the Traveler as they were brought back after failing to sustain their existence. Now, the light imbues them with the power to prove their claim to existence once more. The Winnower even states that they are uniquely special. This is likely due to their ability to reclaim existence after failing to sustain it time and time again. The Winnower also gives us insight into the Gardener's wager. The Gardener claims that, given power over physics, people will choose to use this power to create and sustain diverse, complex life that will provide its neighbors with freedom. It should be noted that this is all the Gardener does. It provides the building blocks of advancement and power, but it does not provide guidance. As shown by bad actors such as the Warlords of the Dark Ages and Clovis Bray of the Golden Age, without guidance, some will choose to act on their own selfish impulses. In fact, in the case of Clovis Bray, he chose to plot against the benevolent traveler and overthrow it once he was able to secure humanity's future so that his creation, Rasputin, would be remembered as humanity's man-made machine god. This final document is different than the rest. This is a letter addressed to VIP 2014, The Guardian. In it, Eris Morn gives her opinion on the darkness. Remember that these documents were recovered during a time when Guardians had yet to begin wielding the darkness. Not long after this letter was written, Eris Morn started using stasis and began assisting other Guardians in their pursuit of this newfound power. In this letter, Eris states that tempting your friends into using darkness would be evil. Of course, this seems to contradict her current actions. She has embraced the darkness. This begs a new question. Is Eris Morn now evil? Just as the Winnower points out, the darkness is not inherently evil. It simply seems to contradict what we see as morally just. However, if you position yourself as though you had no connection to those affected by its power, you would see that it is simply a force of nature. Finally, I would like to address the elephant in the room. As stated in prior notes, due to recent developments on Titan, there are some that have come to believe that the Winnower is the witness and vice versa. While the foundation of our information is shaky at best, it should be noted that I do not believe that this is the case. I would like to take a moment to discuss my reasoning. The witness has been shown to be very dedicated to its cause. It clearly believes that the traveler is morally bankrupt, and as such it feels that it is a blight on all life as it causes unnecessary suffering. This does somewhat fit with what the Winnower seems to dislike. Within the documents, the Winnower says that beings that seek to delay the challenge that all things must overcome deserve no thought. This seemingly targets the traveler and Gardener and his followers. However, the Winnower seems very calm, collected, and non-biased during the majority of the text. It does believe strongly in its ideals, but it only seems to be agitated once in the entirety of the text. The Winnower also describes that it despises those that believe no existence is better than a flawed existence. This seems to describe the witness to a T. It believes that its purpose is to enact the final shape upon the universe to end all suffering. Some have recently begun expressing their thoughts that Unveiling is an allegorical mythology created to explain the events that led to the creation of the Witness and its crusade against the Guardian and Traveler. While some of the puzzle pieces that this fills in make sense on paper, I don't think that these pieces form the correct overall picture. The Winnower describes itself as a natural universal force that existed before the creation of the universe. Another thing to note is that the Winnower describes itself in the text as a natural force. At one point, it even takes credit for a Cambrian explosion as the development of species that prey on other lifeforms during this period fit within its ideology. Finally, the Winnower shows throughout the text that its ideology is not that all life should be culled due to unnecessary suffering, but instead that we should allow the natural selection of Darwinism to play out and allow the strong to thrive and the weak to be removed from existence. Whereas the witness seeks to bring about the final shape, which seems to be the end of everything.
End of Administrator Log. Thank you for viewing this archive, Guardian. Please check back regularly as more documents will be released in due time. If you have anything to note, please leave your own log in the comments below. All input is appreciated.